Hi guys, in this video I'm going to be modelling the Soren chair by John Lewis. I could only find a few reference images which showed the top portion of the design, so the first thing that I did was made a plan of how I would model some of the internal parts and how these might look with a few sketches in Procreate. I tried to figure out how the metal frame would attach to the legs, maybe by attaching to a square plate in the centre. Once I had a plan for each of the parts, I jumped into Blender and started to model the legs from the side view. Again, there weren't too many reference images from a direct side view, so I estimated the shape and played around with it until it looked right. The legs are quite rounded in the lower section and more of a rectangular shape at the top, so I made this shape by creating the rectangular and circular sections and then bridging between them to create a nice blended effect. I also made sure to use enough geometry to maintain the rounded edges when I used the Boolean modifier in the next section. So the way that I imagine these parts would fit together is that the legs might have a cutout section for a central piece to slot into. I made these cutout sections by using a Boolean operation. I only had to do the Boolean once because the leg was arrayed to create 3 duplicates using the array modifier. Because I'd added enough geometry to support the rounded edges previously, there were no shading issues once I'd applied the Boolean modifier and beveled the edges that I wanted to make sharp. I also had to join up all of the extra vertex points which were left over from the Boolean operation and create new edges using the knife tool. Some of the topology here isn't amazing, but it works okay for this model. I added in a couple more reference images and made a start on the armrests. This was made by using a plane which I extruded into a basic shape. I added a thicken modifier and a mirror modifier and then tweaked the shape until I was happy with it. Once I was happy with the shape, I applied the thicken modifier and added a few support loops just to keep the edges a little bit sharper. For the metal frame, I added a base plate to the centre, which is how I imagined that these parts might fit together in my sketches. I used a curve object to create the shape of the metal tubes, adding some thickness in the geometry tab of the curve properties panel. The front pipe was mirrored to create the other side, and I also made a copy of this to use for the back section as well. To make the cushion, I added a plane, gave it a thickness, and added a few support loops. This was enough to create a nice cushion shape using proportional editing and by scaling some of the edges. Once I was happy with the shape, I added an inset to the bottom and a few supporting loops just to control the edge rounding. It was a very similar process to make the backrest as well. While making the backrest, I made a few tweaks to the shape of the armrest as well, just so that this fit a little bit better around the backrest. A really nice detail to add to the cushions is the piping around the edge. I made this by applying the subdivision modifier just to add some more geometry, duplicating the edge where I wanted the piping to be, separating that edge by pressing P to make it into a separate object, adding another subdivision modifier to that edge to make it a little bit smoother, and converting it to a curve object using the convert to command. This lets you add a thickness just like I did for the metal pipes earlier from the curve properties panel, and to make a really nice piping effect. I did this for the seat cushion and for the backrest as well. For a bit of extra detail, I sculpted the seat cushion just a little bit where the metal frame intersects with the cushion. I did this by applying a few levels of the subdivision modifier just to give more geometry to work with, and then used the draw tool in sculpt mode. So this pretty much completes the modelling section, and now I moved on to making some lighting and some basic materials. I set up a basic studio lighting scene with a backdrop and a few area lights, and I just played around with the light strength and position until I was happy with the effect. I also added a camera to the scene and set the position quite similar to one of the reference images. In this section, I also set up some basic materials for each of the parts, and unwrapped the UVs for each of the objects. I used some of the great texture maps from AmbientCG.com for the wood and fabric materials, and all of the other materials are using a principled BSDF node with a few tweaks to the parameters. In the last section of the video, I'm pretty much just making small tweaks to the lighting and to the render settings. I also added some colour to the left light using the black body node, and I also added a sunlight with a plane in front of it just to cast some slightly interesting shadows onto the chair. So this is the final result from the video. I hope you like how this turned out. If you did like the video, please give it a like, leave a comment and subscribe for more 3D modelling videos. If there's anything you want to see on the channel, please let me know. Cheers, and I'll see you in the next video.